not career Navy, but I think 6 years in the Navy, background in engineering and electronics, and came out and founded his own firm. And I'll tell you, from being to his lab, he did first-rate work.
Now, what kind of work would he do? There aren't many Waco things to investigate, so he must have made his living doing something else.
No, well, it was interesting. He had all over his walls, he had pictures of the things he'd used infrared imaging for. And it was things like, if you had a gigantic office building, he could fly over. He was a pilot, take a shot in infrared and tell you if you had any roof problems, because where the roof was leaking water, it wet the insulation, and heat from the building would leak out and show up as a hot spot.
I see.
He did a lot of work spotting polluters in Chesapeake Bay for government agencies, because the water pollution is going to be warmer than the water of the bay, so it's going to show up as a heat image.
Okay, makes sense. So he's not some conspiracy nut. He was making his living doing other things when this fell into his lap.
Oh, yeah. In fact, if Carlos had any politics, I never heard of him. The thing that drove him was he was rigorously honest. And most of us who are upset about Waco are upset over 80 people dying, 24 children being burned. Carlos once told me, he said, the only thing that got him mad about Waco was when he saw government officials lying, and he knew they were lying because he was looking at the evidence. I mean, that was it. He wasn't upset over Waco as Waco. He was upset over the fact that people lie about it.
Okay, so because there were more than just, it was more than just him concerned about that, we had congressional investigations. The Republicans were concerned that there was lying going on as well. So they held hearings, and he was involved in those, right?
Oh, no, he never appeared in the 95 hearings.
Well, I thought he was retained, though, by the Republicans.
Oh, okay. He was retained in September of last year by the House Government Reform Committee, which has not yet had hearings.
Oh, this is Dan Burton's group?
Yeah.
Okay, now, Dan Burton is certainly no friend of the Clinton administration. I would think that that would be a pretty influential defender to have on your side.
Yeah, you would think. I know Carlos worked for them from September of last year to middle part of March. And then they had a falling out, which wasn't actually over his work as such. Carlos was a very meticulous man. He wanted to pin down every gunshot on the FLIR, and he found 198 suspected ones.
198?
Yes. As I said to him, but then they were hosing down the back of the building, and he said, you got it. And he wanted to track, he could see the shooters. That's something they've been claiming, well, you can't see shooters on the tape, so the flashes must not be gunshots. He could track the shooters. He wanted to track each one, where he went at what time.
Now, how was he able to do that when apparently none of the other analysts could?
Well, there were several keys. One was he had excellent equipment. Probably the most important was he had an unbelievable eye. I mean, he could look at an image. I'd look at an image and see nothing. He could look at it and say, look right there. And suddenly you focused your eyes on it and you saw a guy get up and run. Now, but most importantly, he had the best quality copy of the tape. He discovered that all of us who have copies of the infrared tape, and I've got several, actually have copies of a master tape, not the original. FBI made a digital master of the tape. And the problem was it uses compression software, which compresses the image and loses detail in order to make it a smaller electronic image. He demanded and got a copy of the original FLIR tape, directly copied on the Super VHS tape. So he had something that was a generation or two ahead of what everyone else has, probably including the government attorneys.
Okay.
And you could see people on it. I saw them in his office. I saw them running around.
Now, the government still denies this. FBI still denies that there were people firing shots. They have changed part of their story. I mean, they've acknowledged that there was this military force there and that had been there for a long time. I think they acknowledged also having weapons on the scene that they earlier denied having.
Yeah, and firing pyrotechnic gas projectiles, which can start fires.
Firing the pyrotechnic projectiles, but they still have never acknowledged firing any bullets. So that would still be a big problem with their story, and certainly a big problem with their credibility if Carlos turned out to be right. So it's tempting to think, David, that this suspicious death was indeed due to unnatural causes. But here's my question. If this was done to cover up the truth it was done kind of late, wasn't it? Because he'd already documented this. In your own posting on the internet, you have copied a second-by-second analysis, essentially shot for shot and scene for scene, about what happened there. So if they were going to knock him off, they waited too long, didn't they?
It could have been. I'm not saying the guy was knocked off.
Right, I understand that, but I mean that's
not
the
impossible.
suspicion.
He died of natural causes.
That's the suspicion that naturally arises. So I just want to ask you: do you think there is any possibility of it being due to unnatural causes, given that he'd already disclosed most of his information?
I think there's a possibility. Yeah, as I say, 42-year-old man in good health keels over suddenly. I tend to get a little suspicious. One thing is the report which I had there, which he'd faxed me, was only the preliminary report to Burton's committee. He was working on a much bigger document when last I spoke to him, probably a couple of weeks before his death, maybe a week.
Does anybody know the location of that document?
No, he was working on it at the time. So, what this is really a 3-page skeleton outline of his findings, which was, and for example, on it, he has something about a guy gets out of a tank. Well, he filled that into me verbally. He said, you can see the hatch open on one of the FBI tanks. That's beyond any argument. Then you can see what he believes, and some agreed with him, some didn't. He was willing to acknowledge that a guy get out of that hatch, and then you see gunshots from that guy's position. And he told me that Burton's committee knew exactly who that was because they had the name of the man who was under that hatch in that combat engineering vehicle. And that when he was questioned, the guy denied getting out, denied shooting, denied everything, but he shook violently.
Well, now, again, Dan Burton is no friend of the Justice Department or this administration. Why would he not disclose that?
I don't know. Carlos told me that they had all of his results. He was briefing them on a weekly basis, and also that they had lots of other things that he said he knew only a small part of, and he couldn't talk about most of that, but that it was even more shocking. Now, why they're sitting on it 6 months after they began, I don't know. Carlos did mention one thing of the other data, which was that all of the operation, including the FBI siege, was basically based on embezzlement. They were taking the money that was supposed to, I believe the forfeiture money that's supposed to be used only for the war on drugs. Millions of dollars of it were being slipped out to finance not only the ATF assault, but the FBI siege for 51 days.
Well, I read that part on your website, but that goes beyond infrared tracks, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think he was doing work for the committee on that because when he said they have written guidelines in the agencies for when you can use that money, and they violated it all, he pushed his finger onto a pile of documents about 4 inches thick as he was saying they have written guidelines. So I think he was researching that for the committee, too.
Well, I find this all tremendously frustrating, and really don't know what we as individuals can do about it. But I present this to you listeners, and especially those of you who have followed this, and even more especially to those of you who have any expertise in this area, for comment. You've heard what David T. Hardy has had to say. Maybe you followed this on your own. I'd be curious to know what you're thinking about this is, and if it's true that something's being covered up here, how do you get the committee off the dime to do something about it? We'll take a break here at 11:22 and get back with David Hardy and your calls in a moment. The numbers are the same this hour as they were last hour. 421-KIRO or 877-710-KIRO. This is the Dave Ross Show, and I'll be right back.
Now, I often said that I wanted to be buried in like a piano case, the one they use for the big fat guys, with a cell phone and 30 days of food, just in case. Now I've kind of accepted the realization that when I go, that'll be my final answer. And that's what Reed should put on his tombstone, by the way. That's my final answer.
Final answer? Dory Monson. Weekdays from noon to 3 on 710 KIRO.
Now there's absolutely...
For just a penny with activation and rate plans with free weekend minutes for life. Call 1-877-4-CAR-STEREO for the location nearest you. 11:26, 710 KIRO. This is the Dave Ross Show. Over the weekend, it came out that police are investigating the death of an expert who had worked for a congressional committee and who had alleged last year that shots were fired by the FBI in the Waco siege. His name is Carlos Gigliadie. He was 42 years old. He was found Friday afternoon at his apartment. Apparently been there for some time. Supposedly an autopsy was going to be done yesterday. We haven't heard results of it yet. Sometimes tests can take time, so we don't know. There was no sign of forced entry, however, so perhaps it could have been a suicide. We have on the line David T. Hardy, an attorney from Tucson, Arizona, who worked with Mr. Gigliadie and knew of him, knew of his work, had received a fax from him outlining some of his findings after he had examined the tapes of Waco. What was he? Do you know if he was depressed or lonely? I mean, he lived alone apparently.
Yeah, he lived alone. Well, come to think of it, I don't know that for a fact, but I assume it because he never mentioned a wife or kids. The weird part is some of the press reports, maybe the AP says something about he lived in his lab, or they give the address of the lab. I think it was 607 Washington Street as his home. No, that was his laboratory. It was on the third floor of an office building, and it was a two-room lab with no living quarters. I've been there, so they're clearly off on that. He didn't seem depressed at all to me, ever. I mean, he enjoyed his work. He was having a heck of a fun time, and the only complaint he had was overwork, that he had more work than he knew how to handle, essentially. He had several cases going on at the same time as Waco, and so he was sort of, shuffling one slot in between another.
Why would the committee stop working with him? It was mentioned in the AP Dispatch that they found a card, I think, from Burton's committee, but when contacted, the committee staff said no, his work with them was finished long ago.
Yeah, and that was pure BS. Carlos was briefing them, I know, between March 18th and March 21, and then he's dead in mid-April, 3 weeks later. I know he was briefing them, and he was working on a final report, he told me. Now, I don't know why they're distancing themselves from the guy who's been working with them for the last 6 months, but to my mind, they clearly are.
Well, you've heard some of the speculation on that, haven't you?
I can't recall hearing.
Well, I mean, you can dismiss this as more conspiracy theories, I suppose, but some of the speculation that I was reading about this was that the stuff he was sitting on was so incendiary that even the Republicans did not want to touch it for fear of setting off in Oklahoma City, too, for fear of setting off some...
Well, he told me that.
He told you that?
Yeah. That the committee had uncovered, when he said it uncovered even more impressive stuff than he had, he said something like their big problem is, how do they let it out without inspiring or driving the lunatic fringe to 10 or 20 more Oklahoma cities? He said it's that bad.
Huh. Well, I mean, do you believe him, or do you think he was exaggerating?
I never knew Carlos to exaggerate. This was a guy who considered honesty his highest value. Now, I'm open to the fact that what he's telling me, I believe, would be totally honestly said, but he's hearing it from the committee. So conceivably, the committee might be puffing it up when they talk to him. I'm open to that possibility.
Okay, so this was not coming from him, but he was simply relaying what he'd been told by the committee.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. 11:30, 710 KIRO. This is the Dave Ross Show. David T. Hardy, Tucson, Arizona attorney, is on the line. We're talking about the death over the weekend of Carlos Gigliadie, the expert who analyzed the infrared tapes from Waco and said he saw gunshots. There are now, again, the autopsy isn't out yet. There are those who think it's a little bit suspicious that he would turn up dead at the age of 42, right before disclosing the details of his final report. But there it is. All we have to do now is speculate, and that's what we're doing. First, though, let's get to the traffic.
710 KIRO, real-time traffic. Traffic Air Force.
And here is Sarah Johnson.
Righto. I just checked with troopers in the South Sound area, Dave. They tell me the accident in Olympia, southbound 5 approaching State Route 101, has been cleared from the left lane. You may still see him on the shoulder doing some paperwork. There was a semi involved in that crash. Southbound 405 is a little bit thick near the 167 interchange in Renton. The floating bridge is looking good. I don't see any big delays on the freeway. I-5 in and out of Seattle looks fine, even though the express lanes closed early today. Traffic still being detoured northbound off of Rainier Avenue right at Orcas in the Rainier Valley, and that's because of an injury accident. Seattle police working to clear the scene. Traffic's brought to you by WebEx.com. Why are you driving to that meeting? Did you know you can meet with anyone, anywhere using a standard web browser? Check out WebEx.com and learn why great minds meet online. That's WEBEX.com. I'm Sarah Johnson, 710 KIRO Real-Time Traffic. With a look at the forecast, here's Rich Marriott in the King 5 Weather Center.
Well, a lot of clouds around today, but we should see a few sun breaks at times, especially during the late morning and midday hours. But those clouds will thicken back up again this afternoon with highs today in the low to mid-60s. Overnight tonight, chance of rain moves in as we head towards the early evening hours with lows tonight in the upper 40s to low 50s. For Wednesday, the rain turns to showers, possibly in afternoon thunder showers with highs in the upper 50s. And for Thursday, showers and thunder showers, but also a few sun breaks and high temperatures mostly in the mid to upper 50s. I'm Rich Marriott in the King 5 First Alert Weather Center.
710 KIRO.
Gene Innocent examines the danger from high blood pressure to blood clots and even stroke, each caused by a bad mix of food and medicine. Find out how to avoid this risky mix tomorrow on King 5 News at 5.
Call Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Seattle.
Call anytime, day or night, if you're struggling with too much credit card or other debt. We're the experts. We can help you get back in control and get on with your life. Call Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Seattle. 1-800-634-2227. That's 1-800-634-2227. We're a donation-funded community service, and we're here to help you.
Make your Mother's Day reservations, and there's no better place to show Mom your appreciation than Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. They'll be open extended hours with the children's menu, plus your regular favorites. Call 624-8524.
11:36, 710 KIRO. This is the Dave Ross Show. Tucson attorney David T. Hardy is on the line. We're discussing the death over the weekend of the guy who discovered or who alleges that there were shots fired during the Waco siege, the last day of the Waco siege, April 19th, 1993. He was about to disclose his full report, but over the weekend turned up dead in his apartment, apparently been there some time, undiscovered, apparently lived alone. He was 42. His name was Carlos Gigliadie. As far as David knows, he was a credible expert on infrared. Now, David, I'm part of the mainstream non-conspiracy press. All right? When I sat there and I was on duty the day that the siege finally ended, I was watching on CNN, and my first thought was, remember we had heard the tapes released by David Koresh. He was talking about the 7 SEALs. He was delaying. He was stalling. My feeling was that if the FBI didn't create Armageddon, he was going to create his own Armageddon. That he was probably going to burn himself up like that cult did in Uganda. So I really have never believed these conspiracy theories. I figured the FBI, I mean, they apparently blew it. There are probably better ways they could have attacked the building. Yeah. But I don't think they set it on fire. I don't think they executed innocent women and children. But I'm willing to listen to any evidence. How do you feel about some of the allegations that have been made? I mean, do you think, for example, that the FBI purposely tried to incinerate the compound? Do you think that they used a flamethrower of some kind?
No, the flamethrower has been debunked years ago. That was a sunlight flash off a piece of sheetrock filmed from miles away that made it look like a heat flash. You don't see anything like that on the infrared tapes. I think there is a good chance that they did fire pyrotechnic CS grenades into the building, and those have manufacturers' warnings on them: do not use against buildings because they start fires indoors. Some of the Davidians, before they would have had any reason to know of the importance of this, were saying that they could hear the projectiles coming in and hear them hissing under the furniture, and that they were too hot to pick up and throw out. that's not a description of the ferret tear gas round that they claim they were using. That's a description of a pyrotechnic. It burns a gunpowder-like mixture, shoots out flames, and the tear gas comes out as it's smoke. It makes hissing noises, and it heats up. So I think there's a good chance they were pumping those in. And if they did, then they had to know they were running a big risk of starting a fire.
Now, the other thing that impressed me about this outline that you posted on the web was that it also talks about return fire.
Yeah. Oh, like I say, Carlos was honest and totally unbiased. And he said, yeah, the Davidians did shoot back. It was generally at points when the tanks actually rammed into the building. That seemed to inspire return fire.
Uh-huh. So he didn't take sides in this. He was alleging that there were bullets that came from the FBI, but also bullets that came from the compound.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in an attempt to get at the bottom of this, the government recently conducted a recreation where supposedly they used the same kind of infrared camera, the same kind of helicopter. They went down there to the site again, fired bullets, and it didn't get a lot of coverage, but the one story I read about it indicated that it was sunlight, it was reflections, it was debris, but it was not bullets. What did you think about that?
Well, the story that I saw, and this is hearsay, I couldn't understand how they drew the distinction, because they were saying something about gunshots were 2/100ths of a second long, and other reflections were 3/100ths of a second long. If you're making a videotape, all you know is you have pictures made 1/30th of a second apart.
Right.
Your smallest time unit you can measure an event in is 1/30th of a second, and at that point you can't tell the difference whether something was 2/100ths or 3/100ths of a second long.
Well, unless you can measure brightness. Right, I mean, I would assume that the longer a flash is during the 30th of a second, the brighter. We're getting way too technical now.
I mean, but you don't really have a continual image. What you have is a shot, and then a 30th second later, another shot. Each one of those shots may only be 1,000th of a second long.
Well, now, what did Carlos think of the recreation?
He thought it was junk science, and before it, he had sent to the committee a long critique of the recreation and asked them to get it to the right people. And he had things like the altitude of the planes is wrong. They don't provide for calibrating the equipment to make sure in the year 2000 the equipment is operating to the same specs as the different camera was operating in 1993. He predicted that they ought to watch out because if it's British equipment, the recording will probably be made in the British video format, PAL, and not in the American format, NTSC, and translating from one to the other is going to be extremely difficult without loss of quality. And he was right. I just last week heard, we just found a problem. Their camera recorded in PAL.
Now, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do? I mean, anybody who's watched a British import TV show knows that the translation from the two formats is imperfect at best.
Yeah, and this is, we're talking here about not just the picture, but tiny little images in the picture.
Did he ever say to you that he was in fear because of the work he was doing?
No. In fact, I asked him at one point whether he was. This was our first meeting, and he just shrugged his shoulders and said, I was from the time I discovered this data until I gave it to the committee. That was just a few days, and once I gave it, I figured the cat's out of the bag. Who would bother with me?
Yeah.
And I thought, this was not a, trembling conspiracy type of guy at all. You just figured, hey, cat's out of the bag, nobody's going to bother me.
Well, what do you think should be done now? I mean, you've said that we don't know whether this was natural or not. I mean, I'm assuming since there was no forced entry, they're going to report it as being natural causes. I mean, if that is indeed what the report is, what will you do? Will you just let it drop, or do you plan to do something?
I'd suggest, as to his death, I'd suggest have a couple of other coroners look it over just to double-check. Good medical examiners, forensic pathologists. The forced entry to me isn't pivotal because he was in his office. How hard is it to get a guy to open his office door during office hours? You just knock on the door and he opens to see who it is.
Okay, now I keep saying it was in his apartment, but he was found in his office then.
Yeah, the address they gave, I think it's 608 Washington, that was his office up on Suite 304.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't his home. But, have a couple of guys look at it, experts. It's quite possible this was natural. But then we get to the question of what do we do with his data?
Well, yes. I mean, and is it still there? I would hope it was found in the office and kept.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it isn't, then I'd start worrying.
All right, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to ask you the payoff question, David, all right? Stand by. We'll be right back on the Dave Ross Show. It's 11:44. This is 710 KIRO.
See anything interesting in the newspaper?
Oh, I'm just looking at ads for new TVs. Here's that top-rated 27-inch JVC on sale for $349.
Yeah, the consumer magazines like that one best. But if you buy it, you'll be sorry.
Why?
Because they're only $329 at video, only $20 less.
Well, actually, I was thinking about getting the 32-inch JVC for $599.
Just $549 at video, only $50 less.
Really? Maybe I can afford something bigger. Here's a 36-inch Toshiba TV with velocity scan modulation, whatever that is.
It really improves picture detail.
Well, that Toshiba is $1,099, unless video only is $50 less.
Nope, they're not.
Huh.
They're $200 less, only $899.
How do they do that?
At Video Only, you won't find huge stores with refrigerators or computers, but you will find the best deals on TVs, VCRs, DVDs, camcorders, home theater, and satellite systems. Shop around. Just make sure you visit Video Only, because if you don't, you'll be sorry.
In Linwood, Seattle, Bellevue, South Center, Federal Way, and Tacoma. Video Only.
Following is a paid commercial message. Introducing iBelieve.com, a website that offers today's Christians the tools and resources they need to help strengthen their faith and their lives. Chat with other Christians. Be inspired by Christian leaders. Get tips on parenting and personal finance. Or check out the latest music and books. iBelieve.com helps you apply your faith to all areas of your life. iBelieve.com. Come, experience, and grow.
Yes! Nice shot, Katie! Oh, man, I got to tell my wife about this.
The person you're trying to reach is not available at this time, or any time for that matter, because you've got the only wireless phone in the family, remember? You only bought one for yourself. A chump move, I must admit. And now you're living under a rather sizable rock.
With the FamilyNet Share Plan from GTE Wireless, you can afford to get everyone in your family a mobile phone, because up to 5 family members share a single pool of minutes.
What about your daughter? Does she need a ride? Oh, wait. You've got the only wireless phone. Welcome to Cluelessville. Population, you.
And now, with select FamilyNet Share Plans, there are no long-distance charges on domestic calls made from your local service area.
I just want to say I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
The FamilyNet Share Plan. Ask about it at your local GTE Wireless store. Credit check and activation fee required for each line. Phone not included. Early termination fee applies. Other restrictions may apply.
It's springtime and your thoughts turn to pool. That's Pool Minutes from VoiceStream Wireless. With an annual VoiceStream service, you get 2 free Motorola 3682 digital phones, 800 pool anytime minutes, and an additional 400 local weekend minutes each, all for just $69.99 a month. Smart Wireless, an authorized retailer for VoiceStream Wireless with over 20 locations like Northgate, Kitsap, Everett, and Olympia Malls. Or call 1-800-898-SMART. VoiceStream Wireless activation required OAC. Some restrictions apply. See store for details. At Infinity of Kirkland, we think you should know what automobile was rated the most reliable in the world. The answer, Infinity. Come drive the new G20 and 2000 QX4 and see why. Infinity of Kirkland in Totem Lake.
On Sunday, May 7th, Dory Monson, Bill Yen, Cisco Morris, Paul Moyer, Kevin Eby, and even Dave Ross are going to be on the first public voyage of the new fine dining ship, the Royal Argosy, which offers the best in food and, of course, excellent views that you only get from Elliott Bay. Come on out and enjoy the day with Royal Argosy and 710 KIRO on Sunday, May 7th. Call this number to get your tickets, 206-623-1445, or go to our website at www.710kiro.com. And keep in mind the part of the ticket price goes to Mavia, Mothers Against Violence in America. 1148, 710 KIRO. This is the Dave Ross Show. Attorney David T. Hardy and I have been talking about the death of Carlos Gigliadie, who is the infrared expert who discovered Those suspicious flashes on the Waco infrared tapes seem to indicate that the FBI fired at the compound, and also seem to indicate that the Branch Davidians fired back. The significance of it is that the FBI has denied firing anything. There's been plenty of speculation on some bulletin boards and among the conspiracy buffs that this information was too hot to handle, that very possibly the death may have been due to unnatural causes. David, I just want to ask you, as an attorney who has, you've been an officer of the court. I mean, you're not supposed to lie ever, no matter who you may be defending. Do you think that the U.S. government would indeed be capable of going to any length to cover up something it didn't want out?
Capable, yeah. Now, whether that happened in this case or not, that's the question. I mean, would it be capable? Sure. I mean, look, if his testimony is correct, well, it isn't testimony, sorry, but if his statement is correct, and it appears to be, what he's got is something that's going to nail probably the majority of the FBI hostage rescue team on perjury charges, because they all claim there was no shooting, they didn't see anybody else shooting. Lead to the destruction of that agency and strike a blow at FBI credibility far worse than anything the Church Committee ever did to the CIA or any other agency for that matter. There'd be a heck of a lot of people who'd think this would be worth having a little bit of fun with the person responsible. I think it's quite possible.
Has there been any case, though, where even if somebody in the government wanted to do this, they could get away with it? They could truly suppress the truth for a significant length of time. Even the State Department can't keep track of its laptops, for heaven's sake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cover-ups rarely succeed in the long term, but that doesn't keep people from trying them. I mean, historically, look at how many we've seen. Now, I mean, there may be others that weren't exposed, but the point is the fact that your odds of your long-term suppression are low doesn't keep people from trying it, just as the fact that burglars get caught sooner or later doesn't stop them from going into burglary.
So I guess you're going to wait and see what the autopsy says, eh?
Yeah. And like I say, it may well have been natural causes. I think the most critical thing now is what happens to his files, apart from, how did he come to die?
And if it was natural causes and there was no skullduggery involved, presumably his files will be there sitting in a file cabinet, intact, unmolested, and they will jibe with the fact summary that you are in possession of.
Yeah, sure. In fact, if they're at all lucky, he may have had his final report sitting on a word processor. And there should be the various tapes that he was looking at sitting right there in his lab. And he imported images and video off them into a pair of really impressive computers that he had set up. So I'd suggest that we probably get a really first-rate computer guy to look those over and see what he can resurrect.
All right, David, I guess the jury's out then. We just wait and see, don't we?
Sure.
Thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it.
You have a good one.
All right, bye-bye. Tucson attorney David T. Hardy. And you know something? This is something that is unusual. I've done a number of Waco interviews. This is one guy who didn't try to sell his book at the end of the interview. That's a good sign. 11:52, 710 KIRO.
I'm talking to a real-live Geico Auto Insurance customer, Jackie Gelman. Jackie, you filed a claim with Geico. How fast was it handled?
It was fast.
As fast as a cheetah chasing a frightened antelope on the African plains, Jackie?
Well, it was fast.
Voila! Claims handled as fast as a cheetah at dinner time, give or take a few antelope. One 15-minute call could save you 15% or more. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
New extra-strength Rolaids profiles superfan Tom Dolan.
Baseball, it's about pacing yourself. Amateurs, after the first inning, they give out. Me, I work up to it. First inning hot dogs, second inning cheese fries, third chili dogs. By the seventh inning stretch, it's new Rolaids. Extra strength.
New extra-strength Rolaids with even more acid-neutralizing power to wipe out heartburn fast. New extra-strength Rolaids starts working in less than 10 seconds. Rolaids spells relief. Use as directed.
Eighth inning, bratwurst.
Now a special announcement from the Northwest Clinical Research Center in Bellevue. The center is currently studying an investigational antidepressant medication for people 18 years and older. If you're depressed and suffer from the following symptoms: sadness, irritability, coupled with changes in sleep, appetite, or energy levels, you may be eligible to participate in the study. Eligible candidates receive free study medical and psychiatric interviews. Call the Northwest Clinical Research Center today at 425-453-0404. That's 425-453-0404.
Traffic this morning's at a dead stop.
Oh, no.
An 8-ton truck full of jelly has just blindsided a peanut butter tanker.
You're kidding.
I'm not, Nelson. Why do you always doubt the eye in the sky?
Pardon?
If you had Nextel Direct Connect, the digital two-way radio feature on their Motorola phones, like the woman in the car to your right, you could contact coworkers with the push of a button. Instant contact, instant answers, Nelson, no phone tag, all while Jerry's waiting for you to head up that meeting.
You know Jerry?
Oh, I know Jerry. Big thumb twiddler. He's doing it now, just waiting for you to...
Okay, Nextel Direct Connect is fast. Now shut up.
Not fast, Nelson. Instant. Hey, for those of you just tuning in, avoid the highway if you can. If not, hey, pack a loaf of bread.
No.
Nextel, how business gets done. Well, that's traffic. Next up, sports.
Now get 200 bonus minutes per month when you sign up with one of Nextel's national business plans. Call 1-800-NEXTEL-9 for more details. That's 1-800-NEXTEL-9. Limited time offer. Certain restrictions apply. Phones by Motorola. Nextel, how business gets done.
This week is your opportunity to purchase a vehicle at wholesale auction prices just like the dealers buy. Call the Woodinville Public Auction at 1-800-BID-A-CAR and discover how easy it is to bid. Choose from hundreds of vehicles, all makes and models, extended service warranties available, trade-ins welcome, generous financing options, preview, test drive, and make private bids daily. Or attend this Saturday's huge auction at 10 a.m. Save hundreds, even thousands. Call the Woodinville Public Auto Auction, 1-800-BID-A-CAR.
11:55, 710 KIRO. Also from the scary stuff file, Dateline San Francisco, movie previews are now coming to an automated teller machine near you. Yes, your friends at Wells Fargo Bank are rolling out a new type of ATM that will be more than just a cash dispenser. Somebody noticed that these ATMs have video screens. And these video screens need not be limited to simply saying things like cash withdrawal, deposit withdrawal, fast cash, 40, 100, 200. They can actually play movie previews. And so, selected ATMs will start playing movie previews. 3 ATMs in the San Francisco Bay Area and 1 in L.A. is scheduled to go online today. They're going to show you the latest movies and ads. And they promise, this is what gets me, they say, no, we're not going to charge extra for this service. Charge extra? You should remove the fees you have on there, for heaven's sake.
Tonight, on an all-new episode of Will and Grace, Molly Shannon is back.
The lunatic who got in a cat fight with Grace and tore her clothes off?
Speaking.
I'm such a big fan of your work.
Then, on an all-new Just Shoot Me, experience the magic, the artistry, the romance that is Finch on Ice.
That's skating. Skating!
Okay, we got it. And on Dateline, can someone really become a born-again virgin? Tonight on NBC.
Beginning tonight at 8 on King 5.
Broccoli is good for you, isn't it? Well, apparently not if you're taking certain drugs.
When common medications from antibiotics to antidepressants interact with certain foods, the side effects can be serious.
Some are life-threatening.
Tomorrow, in a King 5 Health Link report, Gene Innocent examines the danger from high blood pressure to blood clots, even stroke, each caused by a bad mix of food and medicine. Find out how to avoid this risky mix. Tomorrow on King 5 News at 5.
The gold rush inspired many a song, such as this one. In a cavern, in a canyon, excavating for a mine, dwelt a miner, 49er, and his daughter, Clementine. Oh, my darling, oh, my darling.
Their home was a cavern?
It's you.
Poor Clementine.
Her father should have sat down with a Wells Fargo banker and explained the situation to him, that he had this cavern and he wanted to make some improvements. Then he could get a home equity loan custom tailored to fit his needs perfectly. And through June 4th, Wells Fargo is even offering up to $250 back.
But the son...
He could have chosen terms from 5 to 30 years, lowered his monthly payments, and used the extra money for Clementine's education.
In the song, Clementine's lost and gone forever.
Would you live in a rundown cavern? Come in and find out how you can get a home equity loan and up to $250 cash back. Wells Fargo Bank and A, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Offer good through June 4th, 2000. Certain restrictions apply. See a participating Washington branch for details.
Dory Monson is next.
Oh, what a show. We're going to talk with the lawyer for the Tourette's-addled box boy, and we're going to talk with the developer of a Nevada town perfect for gun lovers.
This is Seattle's most listened to radio station. News Radio 710 KIRO is your source for news, traffic with Seattle's only traffic helicopter, and the issues that matter to you. KIRO Seattle.
It's 12 o'clock, and good afternoon from the 710 KIRO News Center in Seattle. I'm Greg Hersholt. Governor Gary Locke today signed a new state budget which bails out local governments, the ferry system, and highway projects after voter approval of the big Initiative 695 car tax cut. The governor also announcing today that he's endorsing a charter school initiative for the fall ballot, a plan that would allow creation of publicly funded independent schools that operate largely free of state and local regulations. There are claims that Microsoft is still breaking antitrust rules, even as the company fights being torn into two pieces for violating the law.
Now there's new evidence about things that Microsoft is doing in terms of its new Windows 2000 program that weren't part of the trial documents at all.
Rex Nutting with CBS Market Watch says the revelations come as a judge is considering how to punish Microsoft, perhaps splitting up the company for breaking the law. Although the Bellingham City Council accused the Olympic Pipeline Company of stonewalling, the council has given that company 6 more weeks to improve safety standards and extended the company's franchise. The pipeline remains closed through the city because of last year's explosion. Bill and Hillary Clinton opened a White House conference today saying the job parents do at home is more important than the one they do at the office.
Having just graduated from being the parents of a teenager to being the parents of a 20-year-old and having survived it.
The Clintons emphasized their own efforts to have had at least one meal a day with Chelsea when she lived at home. And in promoting that practice, the president cited a study that found that teens who have dinner with their parents 5 nights a week are far less likely to engage in smoking, drinking, violence, suicide, and drugs. Mark Knoller, CBS News, the White House.
Tower Air says it's continuing with its charter flights and its military flights, but no more passenger flights, at least for the time being. And that move to stop its passenger service stranded hundreds of people last night at Kennedy Airport in New York. Their flight to Tel Aviv was canceled. Jews around the world are pausing today to remember one of history's most horrible events.
Today happens to be what's called Yom HaShoah, and it's a day that's specifically set aside as a commemorative day for the Holocaust.
Now, members of Seattle's Jewish community take part in the remembrance by spending the entire day reading the names of Holocaust victims.
What is perhaps most moving is not only to read one name, but to read 10 or 15 or 20 names with the same surname from the same town, and you realize that entire families were killed.
It's Rob Spitzer, the regional president of B'nai B'rith. He says by the end of the day, more than 20,000 names will have been read. On Wall Street, it's a down day. The Dow Industrial's losing about 65 points right now. The NASDAQ Composite down about 84 points. Let's check 710 KIRO Sports with Ron Callan.
At the University of Washington, opening day is Saturday. The Huskies will host Navy and the rowing teams from Egypt. One slight glitch. 2 members of the Egyptian team couldn't get visas, so right now they only have 6 rowers for the 8-person Varsity 8 boat. Elsewhere, the Mariners in Minnesota today, 4:30 the On Deck Show here on 710 KIRO. I'm Ron Callan, 710 KIRO Sports.
Traffic and weather together next on 710 KIRO.
This one's for you, Mom. M is for the Monday morning waffles. O is for the orange juice.
Yes, another Mother's Day. One that could either disappear into oblivion or one you could celebrate with 30 minutes of free I love yous to Mom.
T is for the temperature I had. H is for the 100 times.
That's right, free. When you visit GTE Phone Mart and purchase the Big Deal Calling Package plus one additional service such as internet service, voicemail, or GTE long distance, or buy any cordless caller ID phone, we'll give you a free 30-minute prepaid phone card to call anybody. We might recommend Mom.
Are the recitals at which I play.
Visit GTE Phone Mart and get 30 minutes free. But hurry, offer ends May 14th.
Put them all together, they spell mother.
Yikes. Call 1-800-GTE-6697 or visit www.gte.com for the GTE Phone Mart nearest you. Supplies are limited. See store for details. GTE Long Distance is a division of GTE Communications Corporation.
710 KIRO, real-time traffic. Traffic Air Force.
Here's Sarah Johnson.
There is a stalled vehicle that just cleared eastbound 520 at the Eastern High Rise, but it was there long enough to jam up traffic across the bridge deck. That's eastbound 520 heading over toward Bellevue. One of the only tough spots right now. The express lanes are still closed on I-5 between Seattle and Northgate, but the main line is handling all of the volume just fine. Really no delays through the downtown area or heading north toward Linwood, south towards South Center. Enjoy the drive. Southbound 405 hesitates near State Route 167, and a survey crew will be working throughout the day today at the west end of the Hood Canal Bridge, State Route 104. There will be some lane restrictions there. In fact, today through Thursday. Traffic is service of Millionaire Celebrity Week on Channel 4 tonight. It's Millionaire Celebrity Week. It is followed by an all-new Dharma and Greg, a special Tuesday Drew Carey, and an all-new NYPD Blue starting tonight at 8 on Channel 4. I'm Sarah Johnson, 710 KIRO, real-time traffic.
Now the 710 KIRO forecast with Rich Marriott in the King 5 Weather Center.
Overnight tonight, chance of rain moves in as we head towards the early evening hours with lows tonight in the upper 40s to low 50s. For Wednesday, the rain turns to showers, possibly in afternoon thunder showers with highs in the upper 50s. And for Thursday, showers and thunder showers, but also a few sun breaks and high temperatures mostly in the mid to upper 50s.